My father died when I was only 5 years old. Most of the memories I have of him involve him being drunk. He was in the army, and he would come home most nights, still dressed in his army uniform, and fall asleep on the sofa, stinking of booze. I remember one night how he and my mother had a bad fight. She stood at the top of the staircase, sheltering my brother and I behind her legs. He was at the bottom of the stairs, swaying from side to side, the alcohol heavy and red in his face. My mother had a knife in her hand, and she said, "If you come up here, I'll kill you." And he said, "You must be joking." My first pet was a guinea pig called Herbert. We kept him in a hutch in the backyard of my grandparents' house. I think my mother got him to cheer me up after my father died. I would let him out and watch him run around the yard, trying to see if there were any gaps in the brick walls to escape through. When Herbert was sleeping, I would make sure no one was watching, and then poke at him with a stick through the wire mesh. I liked to listen to his high-pitched, panicky squeals. That would cheer me up. I did this for a long time, until one day I came back from school and was told by my mother that Herbert had died. She said he had suffocated in his nest, but I knew immediately that it was because of me, because of what I had done. I had tortured him to death. My grandfather was a coal miner all his life. He was a muscular, grey-haired giant who taught me how to shoot and who liked to show off the hardness of his hands by banging 6-inch nails into bricks using the flat of his palm. When I was 5, he built a model railway engine big enough for my brother and me to sit inside. It had bicycle pedals in the floor that we could use to make it move forward, and a clumsy brake made out of a length of wood to make it stop. It was the best present we had ever received. We would climb in and ride it for hours along the back street of the mining town where we lived. Once our father played with us during one of his spells of leave from his tour of duty in the British Army in Borneo. I recall him bending down to have his photo taken with us as we sat in the little red cabin of our railway engine, proud drivers of the Flying Scotsman or the Orient Express. As he leaned in, I could smell the beer and tobacco on his breath. 3 months later, he was killed in a military vehicle accident. One time, my brother and I were riding in the engine, with him pedaling hard so we could feel the thrill of the speed as it hurtled along that narrow back street. When it was going as fast as it could, I jumped out, gave it an extra push, and watched with glee as the engine carried my howling brother smack into a brick wall. He was all right, really, just a few cuts to the head and a lot of noise and snot. But my mother beat me with my dead father's army belt. We were forbidden from playing with the model engine from then on. Sometime later, during a particularly cold winter, my grandmother ordered my grandfather to chop up the model engine for firewood. My mother, brother and I were away at the time and found out about it when we returned. Apparently he put up some resistance initially, but finally did as he was told, sobbing as he smashed his own handiwork into splinters with an axe. When I learned what had happened, I cried too, for the loss of the engine and for something else, a feeling that I couldn't name at the time, but which I now know is shame. I was ashamed for my grandfather, for giving in to his wife, for showing such weakness. He had always been the strong man, and now I was told he had cried like a child, like my brother. And I can't say who I hated more, my grandfather for his cowardice, my grandmother for her power over her husband, myself for feeling these things, or the stupid model engine for making all these things happen in the first place.